Hi, everyone. I'm Teresa from Sunrise Perspectives, and today I want to ask you a question. How good of a listener are you? Most of us would probably say we're pretty good at listening. But are we really listening, or are we simply waiting for our turn to talk? Today I want to talk about what it means to really listen. Not listening so we can think of our response, but listening so another person feels understood. It sounds simple, but it's actually much harder than we realize. I have to admit, I'm guilty of getting this wrong sometimes. The difference now is that I catch myself. Not long ago, I was talking with a young woman about our pets. I was happily telling stories about my own dogs when she quietly mentioned that she'd be putting her dog to sleep later that week. I almost missed it. I was so focused on what I wanted to say that I nearly talked right over one of the hardest moments of her life. Later, I went back and I apologized. That conversation didn't need to be about my dogs. It needed to be about her. She didn't need another story. She needed someone. She needed someone to simply say, "I'm sorry. That must be incredibly difficult. If you're comfortable sharing, I'd love to hear more about your dog and what brought you to that decision." And then, just listen. Isn't it amazing how often we do this without even realizing it? Someone shares an accomplishment, a disappointment, a struggle, and before they've even finished speaking, we've already searched our own memory for a similar story. We think that sharing our experiences creates connection. Ironically, it often does the exact opposite. The other person walks away feeling unheard. I recently finished reading the book Super Communicators by Charles Duhigg, and one idea really stood out to me. And that is that every conversation has two parts. There's the information that someone is sharing, and then there's the emotion underneath it. Someone may be sharing excitement, fear, grief, pride, embarrassment, hope, or disappointment. If we only hear the facts and immediately make the conversation about ourselves, we miss what mattered most. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone says, "I just finished running my first marathon." One possible response is, "Oh yeah? My neighbor runs marathons every year. They even travel to different states to compete." Did you notice what happened? The conversation instantly shifted away from the person who had just shared something meaningful. Instead, pause. Give yourself just 2 or 3 seconds. Let what they say sink in. Then respond with something like, "Wow, that's a huge accomplishment. How long did it take you to train for that?" Now you've invited them to tell their story instead of replacing it with yours. Does that mean you can never share your own experiences? Of course not. Sharing our stories is part of building relationships. The key is timing. First, make sure the other person feels seen. Make sure they feel heard. Make sure they know that their story matters. Then, if it fits naturally later in the conversation, you can share your own experience. One of my favorite verses comes from James chapter 1, verse 19. It says, "Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." What strikes me about this verse is the order. Be quick to listen. Not quick to answer, not quick to give advice, not quick to tell our own story. Quick to listen. Imagine how different our families, our friendships, our workplaces, and even our churches might be if we practice that one simple verse a little more often. So here's my challenge for you this week. The next time someone tells you something important, resist the urge to immediately tell your own story. Instead, pause, validate what they shared, ask one more question. You might be surprised how deeply someone feels cared for when they realize they're truly being heard. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give another person isn't our advice. It isn't our opinions. It isn't even having the right words. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give another person is our full attention. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me today. Until next time, I'm Teresa with Sunrise Perspectives, encouraging you to keep looking for the beauty around you, keep growing into the person God created you to be, and remember that sometimes the brightest light we can bring into someone else's life begins with simply listening. Have a wonderful day. Bye.